Welcome to the Words to Empower podcast, featuring Bishop Frank Stewart, pastor of the Acts Ministry in Conway and North Little Rock. And now, Pastor Stewart.
Welcome back to your Acts Ministry podcast. We're talking about this incredible statement that was made in the book of Joshua. And that statement, as we are paraphrasing it, says, we got ours, and we want to make sure, we're going to fight to make sure you get yours. So we're talking about that, and the principle, the root principle that holds that statement up is the principle of giving. Because what they're saying is that we are going to give you our time, our energy. We're going to give you blood, sweat. We're going to give you everything. We're going to give you the best that we have. Time. So we're talking about that, giving. I started on the book of Malachi chapter 1 on yesterday, and it is a powerful chapter. It is a relational chapter where we see the heart of God, where God is talking to Israel. He's saying to them, our God is saying to them, I've loved you. You have to hear that, and you have to be sensitive to what God is saying, as if we would say something like that. I've loved you. I've always loved you. And he talked to Israel about that, and God began to ask them, why have they given unto him the blind, the stolen, the lame, and the sick? These are the offerings that brought to God, offerings. And the Lord began to ask them. Of course, they were very cynical in their answer, as if they didn't know what God was actually saying. But God loved them and still loves them because he is love. Now, the thing we have to understand concerning God's love, he's a God that lives up to what he says. He's a God that will never fall short of his word. Now, we can't say that. So because God loved them, he gives. The last thing I was talking to you about on the other day before we left the air was God gives unto us every day. He loads us down with benefits. And one of the things that God gives to us that we all need to recognize is that he gives us life. We are able to inhale and exhale every moment of the day. God allows that to happen. The breath that we breathe is not ours. The air is not ours, but God gives us grace. He is a giver. That's one thing I want you to see about God. If we're going to reflect the personality of God, the character of God, then the one thing we must understand is God is a giver. He's a giver. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, when we leave this planet, when we leave this world, the one thing that you want to walk into eternity with an understanding is that you were a giver. You died a giver, because at that point, what you have given in this world is going to be transmuted or transferred to your heavenly account. Now, some folks are going to be in trouble because they have the spirit of stinginess and they have the spirit of covetousness, and they won't give. But just think about it. Just think about this. Just ponder this. If you had a monopoly on air, if you had a patent, if it belonged to you, and you were supposed to get paid every time somebody inhale and exhale, what would you charge? What would you charge? Now, I know some people they're trying to do that, whether you realize it or not. Right now, in this world, there are people that are actually paying for air. They are paying for air. They're based on how much pollution a country has released into the air, and there is an official company that has agreements with different countries, and they charge so much for air based on the pollution, based on the size of the country, and so forth. But if you had a patent on that, you had that, and that belonged to you, what would you charge? What would you charge to give a person the right to inhale, exhale for a month? What would be their monthly bill if you had that power? Well, think about it. God has that power, and he freely gives us life. We can't force him. Can't force God to give us life. How would you force him? But he gives us life, one breath at a time. One breath. You know what the richest man would pay for just one breath? The richest man would pay for just one more day of life. One more good day of life. One more week, one more year of life.
Stay tuned for more of Frank Stewart. And now for some special announcements.
Thanks for partnering with the Acts Ministries. We value your service and your donations. That's why we've made it easy to make contributions to support our ministry. Simply go to your web browser and click the search bar and type in actsministriesonline.org. Then click Donate Online. It's really that easy. For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242. That's Simple Give.
And now, more of Pastor Frank Stewart.
One more week, one more year of life. How much you think that would be worth? To some people, they would pay millions just for another week, just for another day, because life is priceless. But God gives us life every moment. He gives us that ability to breathe, to inhale and exhale. What would we charge for that? So when we start talking about relationship, God is trying to get them to understand that he is the giver in the relationship that he is in with us. He's a giver. Now, in some relationships, you got people that are givers, and you got some people that are takers. People that are givers and takers. People that are give, they're constantly giving. People that are taking, constantly taking. God is saying, I'm in a relationship with you. Are you a giver or are you a taker? Do you take and never give? Now, the thing about that is, what we would give is what God has given unto us. But even what he's given unto us, he still stands back and said, what are you going to do with it? That's quite phenomenal, that even when God gives us what he gives to us, he doesn't just give it to us minus what we owe. Wow. Thank God for that. Because if he took off what we owe him, we would be in debt. We would stay in the minus. But when we look at it financially, God gives us 100%. Then he asks for tithing and he asks for offering. Now, he could have kept that. He could have took that off the top and we would have never seen it. But that's not the purpose that God is looking for. That's not what God is trying to do. It is a love test. It's one thing I want you to get in your vocabulary. A love test. Love must always be tested. And the one thing that is just so incredible about the God of the universe is that he is so personable. I almost wanted to say he's so human. But if I said that, you wouldn't understand it because he is a spirit. But he actually, Jesus, when he was here, he was more human than any of us. He was more human than any of us. He was a giver. He gave his life. He's a giver. So in a relationship, and that's what he's looking for, and that's what most people miss. They miss what giving is all about because they miss that it is a relationship. But here in chapter 1 of the book of Malachi, and God is talking to the priests. I want you to look at verse 8. He says to them, and ye offered the blind for sacrifice. Is it not evil? Now God is asking them that. He says, now, You give me the leftovers. You give me the worst that you have. And he says, is that not evil? Is that not evil? Now, the problem is they're giving God the leftovers. They're giving God the worst they have, and they are upset about it when they are called into question. Now, that is the height of arrogance and conceit. To be conceited, that's the height of it. You do wrong and get mad about the wrong that you did. We see that in Cain, right? Cain did not offer unto God what God wanted. And when God came to him and began to talk to him about it, Cain was upset. He was angry when he did the wrong thing. Brothers and sisters, we have to make sure that that evil heart of unbelief do not consume us. We got at the very least, be at a point that we can repent quickly, ask for forgiveness quickly. And the only way we'll be able to do that is stay at the cross. Stay at the cross. Because the cross is always going to remind you of the love of God. It's always going to remind you of God giving. It's always going to remind you of that. That's why the disciples, every one of them was martyred except St. John. And they tried to kill him. But they gave their lives. They gave their lives because they had been infected by being with Jesus, the ultimate giver. So you couldn't walk with Jesus and stay with him any length of time unless you Judas and not be infected with giving. Only Judas. Can you imagine that? Here's Judas with Jesus, and these are men are givers. Judas is a taker. He's a taker. He's looking for what he can get out of it. He's looking for what he can receive. As good as God has been to him and everything that Jesus did for him, yet and still he's trying to take. What can I take? What can I take for myself? What can I get out of it? At the end of the day, how is it going to benefit me? And that's not what God wants us to do. If we're lights and we're salt, as the Lord said we are, then we are supposed to give the light direction. We're supposed to give salt, healing, and a way of deliverance, and a way of bringing people to the Savior by showing them that the greater one lives on the inside. So here, the priests here, these was the leaders, and they was bringing God anything. And God says to them, he says to them in verse 8, he says, is that not evil? Think about that. Isn't that evil? That you would give me that? That you would give me that? Can you imagine? And we can't imagine this because we have never given anybody a present, and they say that's evil. Because if you give somebody something and you've given it to them, they should be thankful that you gave it to them. Should be thankful. But God says what you gave me is evil. It's evil. Why is it evil? Because it's not the first and it's not the best. It's evil. It's evil. That means if it was evil, it came from an evil place. An evil heart. A heart that was evil. A heart that believed that I can give you this and not feel anything. I mean, to give a person that has given you everything something and give them the worst that you have and not feel anything. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. That's a heart issue. That's a heart problem. To give a person who has given you everything and is still giving, and you just give them the worst that you have. You just give them leftovers and not feel anything. You have moved from being human. You've moved from a heart of flesh to a heart of stone. And that's what is going on here. These people, and especially the leaders, as if God didn't know. God did not understand. Now God says something to them in verse 8. He says, take it now to your governor and see if he'll be pleased with you. Take it down and see if the person on the job, if your boss on the job, take it to the governor of the city, of the state, and see would he be pleased with that. If you give this to him as a gift, If you give this to him as a gift, you'll probably get executed. And this is, you don't bring the king the leftover. Even a physical, you wouldn't bring a king something that is polluted, because you know that your life would be in jeopardy. And just think about it. That natural king hadn't done anything for you. But the King of Kings gives us everything that we have. Now, brothers and sisters, I want us to understand, even listening to this, even talking about this, there should be a sense of guilt, shame, because I don't think it's any one of us that have not offered God something that cost us nothing. I don't think any of us have given God something. Any of us have given God something that we wouldn't want anybody to give to us. We've given him what we had left over, what was left, and we expected him to receive it. See, what God, again, I want you to understand, when it comes to giving, it's all about relationship to him. All about relationship. And if we don't understand that it's all about relationship, we will miss it. We will miss it, because to him, it's about relationship. And we got to get that, because he's looking at our hearts, and our hearts is being reflected by what's in our hands. I want you to stay tuned as we continue this study on that bedrock principle, and that is giving, the ministry of giving.
For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242.
The Acts Church in North Little Rock is located at 1224 Franklin Street. Morning Glory begins at 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Sunday school begins at 8:30 a.m. And for a powerful word, join us at 9:30 a.m. for our morning worship service. Bible study is each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. At our Conway location, Morning Glory begins at 10 a.m. Sunday school begins at 10:30 a.m. Worship service begins at 11:30 a.m. On Thursday, our Bible class begins at 6:30 p.m. For more information, go to actsministriesonline.org or give us a call at 501-329-2055.
Thank you for tuning in to the Acts Ministry Podcast. The Acts Church is located at 1423 Indian Street in Conway and 1224 Franklin Street in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Tune in each day to hear an inspiring word from Pastor Frank Stewart.